Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us this sunny Wednesday. I hope you had a fantastic bank holiday weekend. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Phil Bailey from Thomson Reuters, and I'm equally delighted, Phil, that you're going to be joining us as headline partners to the P2P Transformation Summit, which is remarkably next week. Can you tell us, what are you most looking forward to about the day?
Well, Ellen, firstly, thank you for having me along today. Wow, doesn't a year go really fast? I remember last year's summit like it was yesterday. We've been part of this community for a number of years now, and I must say it just never gets old. Next week, June the 4th, at the Waldorf in London is going to be a great day. What am I most looking forward to? I would say the quality of the conversations. You and the team behind the P2P Transformation Summit always managed to create such a safe space amongst P2P leaders. And I would say to be refreshingly open about sharing their experiences and journeys. For me, I can't wait to get into those big themes that are shaping finance right now, on-time payments, AI, collaboration, and the UK's move towards an e-invoicing mandate.
Yes, indeed, all of those big themes coming up. And it's interesting, hearing you talk about some of the other events that have been in the last couple of years and more. They do certainly go by in a flash. But of course, the world, the P2P world moves on. And some of those conversations build on the previous events from the year before. And some are entirely new, as you say, like the e-invoicing mandate, which will for sure create some changes in our procure-to-pay organisations and departments. And of course, we'll be hearing from you on your presentation from Thomson Reuters about how AI can help AP and tax speak the same language. Maybe you can tell us, why do you think it's important that they do?
Well, think about transactions as being the lifeblood of all businesses. We're all in the business of trade, of doing business with one another, and exchanging goods and services, essentially for cash. So that transaction becomes so important. An e-invoice is a request for payment, and that transaction no longer neatly belongs in one team. Tax owns the compliance logic, IT owns the systems, finance owns the outcome, and AP lives with the operational reality. So those teams, if they're not aligned, complexity and risk shows up really, really fast. For us, what we see is that AI can help create that shared layer of visibility and trust across invoice data, exceptions, approvals, and the tax treatment, which means essentially reduce risk, faster decisions, and much, much better control.
Yeah, and having that control is so important now, isn't it? Because you need to be able to get visibility, and I think, as you're saying, AI can help give organizations and the people working across P2P that visibility that they never had before. So it'd be interesting to hear your full presentation about the intricacies of what we can do and how things can change and develop. So on hearing that, do you think that compliance then has kind of shifted up a gear?
Absolutely, and materially so. When we talk about compliance, when we look at the world of e-invoicing and tax reporting, government enforced mandates are coming into force in nearly every jurisdiction. That regulatory pace is relentless, and that makes e-invoicing more so than ever a boardroom conversation, not just a back office system or process box to tick along the way. For me, that's a positive shift. It means the investment case for getting AP and AR infrastructure correct and right has never been stronger. We see penalties for getting it wrong becoming very, very real, not just in terms of financial fines, but the impact on getting paid, paying up vendors. It's about being a good corporate citizen. It's about being a modern, digitally led business. If we look closer to home in the UK, the HMRC and the Department for Business and Trade have confirmed mandatory e-invoicing for all VAT invoices coming up. Um, that's driving the agenda about not just compliance, but bleeding into efficiency, better tax compliance, but also addressing those late payments.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really see how, if you're looking at it then from just a compliance standpoint, you're kind of missing out on the wider conversation, aren't you? Because you need to have those linking points. And I think to some degree, you mentioned just now about collaboration. And do you think that that has to be a key part of the message between, not just between the departments from a technical standpoint, but what about the people within them as well? And maybe when you're touching upon that, you could help organizations who perhaps are people within them who are listening today, who perhaps haven't got that layer of collaboration. How might they be able to achieve that?
Great question, Ellen. Engaging people in your own organization, having a strategy and great collaboration are central components of success. And that's before any technology or solution is deployed. The recurring failure points we see are lack of group level direction.
Mm.
And that could be group as in globally or across as a central function, or it could be group as an ownership across departments and leaders. We also see other failure points around badly managed timelines, consolidation, and that point of ownership. Mandates are moving faster than any internal organization can move, any internal delivery or department can move on their own. And we see too many local solutions creating fragmentation. Different teams owning different parts of the problem becomes really, really unscalable and a really expensive problem to unpick in the future. So my advice is from looking across the organizations that we work with at Thomson Reuters that are doing it well, they're the ones who put an enterprise owner around the table, stringing together, putting that red thread around tax, AP, AR, IT, and procurement, um, looking at a collective and collaborative roadmap rather than a series of disconnected projects.
So it's it can be quite a large project perhaps, and maybe one that if you're looking ahead to 2029, if you're thinking about the UK and the mandate here, perhaps it's one that you need to start thinking about now because, if you're talking about ownership on that level, perhaps some organizations need to have a really good look at their existing processes and, where those dotted lines connect to the different functions, as you mentioned, AP, procurement, AR, for etc. You also mentioned just at the beginning of our conversation about payments and the importance of that and making sure that, if you've got AI aligned or even just some other elements of technology in your processing, you're able to prevent to some degree those late payments having an impact into your supply chain and your own organization. And you are going to be introducing our opening keynote speaker, Dave Fishwick, aka Bank of Dave. And he famously prevented some mostly smaller firms from going bust during the banking crisis. And I was just wondering, what your feelings are about that and how Thomson Reuters align with that ethos.
Well, the Banker Dave, I was recently introduced via the film, and since learnt a lot more. And I think what an interesting story, and what a really, really aspirational individual who's driven so much change across. I would say breaking down so many established closed door practices, but also driving so much value to economic growth and businesses in pockets of the country. What resonates strongly for me, and I guess looking from a point of from Thomson Reuters' perspective, is the real focus on economic health, the ability to thrive and to grow freely without those closed door restrictions, especially for smaller businesses across supply chains or kind of looking to grow their operations. As I mentioned earlier, an invoice is essentially a request for payment, and payments and cash flow is the lifeblood of every organization, big global conglomerates and small emerging organizations and SMEs. When an SME gets paid on time, they have more resilience, more room to invest, and more ability to grow. And that's exactly where e-invoicing and stronger digital processes can make a tangible difference. If we shine that spotlight where we are today in the UK government has linked e-invoicing via their recent consultation to a 20% reduction in late payments. That's average savings of over £11,000 for small and micro businesses and a 3% productivity boost in finance heavy sectors. So, from Thomson Reuters' perspective, our role is to help businesses build their own infrastructure that makes that kind of certainty and control possible. That important nuance is that e-invoicing improves payment efficiency and transparency and enables compliance and regulatory resilience, but technology alone is only an enabler. It works really well alongside good culture, good payment behavior, and good policy. Whether you're a small business or a very large one, think about your supply chain. And that often requires a paradigm shift in culture from the very top to the very bottom across every economy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Phil. And I think that sometimes there can be a little bit of a disconnect, can't there, between larger enterprise-sized companies and their smaller suppliers, just from an understanding point of view. Sometimes you might find, and actually quite often you might find, that those people, maybe the CFO, for example, of an enterprise-sized company, has never worked within a small business and doesn't understand the nuances or what it's like to own a small business themselves. However, of course, some of those small businesses may well be within their supply chain. And as you know, just because they're small doesn't mean to say that they're not critical suppliers in some cases. So putting that lifeblood back into the economy is certainly a key thing that we all want to do. And as you say, e-invoicing can go some way towards providing that and delivering that visibility that is so key to being able to ensure that we have the ability to pay our suppliers on time. And of course, as you say, put that innovation back into the economy as well. And talking about innovation, you are going to be supporting, or in fact, you are supporting our P2P Team of the Year award. And we're going to be celebrating the success of the winners and finalists from the main stage from the P2P Transformation Summit, right at the end of their day's sessions. Why do you think it's important that we celebrate success of procure-to-pay teams as we will be doing?
Oh, I must say, Ellen, I really can't wait for this one. Recognition and accolades are so important to shine a light upon the real hard work that's going on. P2P teams today are carrying so much more than e-invoice processing or invoice processing. They're absorbing those regulatory changes. They're working on improving controls. They're protecting supplier relationships. They're uncovering and combating fraud through AP practices. They're supporting working capital and increasingly acting as that bridge between finance teams, tax, procurement, and technology. That awesome work, whether it's end to end or pockets of that flow, requires an absolutely implores recognition, and that recognition matters because transformation is delivered in the day-to-day work of these teams.
Fantastic. I love that analogy of a critical bridge, because what does a bridge represent in itself? Visibility across all of the, from both sides and angles of the function. And where you've got visibility, you also have the control and insights into the rest of the business. So, as you say, and put so eloquently, it gives that true visibility, and you're able to have if you succeed in that area, fantastic, and that deserves celebrating, as you say, and which we will be doing from the main stage on the 4th of June at the wonderful Waldorf. And we can't wait to have you there and the rest of the team, Phil, from Thomson Reuters, supporting the event as our headline partners on the day. And if you're listening to this and you haven't yet registered, I'm just going to put, so we're going to see a little ticker along the bottom there, and you can pick up the URL and put that into your browser and come along and join us if you're not already registered. You don't want to miss out on what's going to be a fabulous day at the wonderful Waldorf in London. And if you are registered, which I know a lot of you are listening to us today, we cannot wait to see you and open those doors. But for now, Phil, thank you very much for joining us this morning and talking to us all about what you're most looking forward to at the event next week. And I keep saying that because it's suddenly come around, and we cannot wait to see everybody there. But thank you for now, Phil, and see you very, very soon.
Pleasure. Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.